Hello everybody and welcome to another amazing video of DIY investing. Over the last week, we saw a massive drop in Bitcoin. This has caused many of the markets to sell off in the wakes of the S&P 500 selling off as well. We talked about why I believe the stock market was bearish and how it could potentially knock crypto lower. Now that we're actually seeing that follow through, I have a very important update to give you guys. We're going to be talking about every single major index inside of crypto, looking at the total market cap for Bitcoin, altcoins, and then the entirety of the market as a whole, and then making sure that you guys by the end of this understand exactly what is going to be playing out over the next couple months so that we can be best prepared for the volatility that's at hand. I'm going to break it down in exactly what I see playing out, so make sure you stay all the way to the end so you don't miss out. Thank you guys so much for tuning in, and with that being said, let's jump right into this amazing video today. Alrighty guys, here we are to start off today's video and talk about Bitcoin and what we're seeing today. Now, the most important thing that we were covering in my last video and what we've been covering extensively has been centered around the S&P 500 and this retest or potential retest at about 43.25. And we've been talking about how ever since we were up here at about 46, I said how we were most likely going to be topping just basically because we hit our first resistance after the breakout of this 43.30 level. And so when we ran all the way up here to the top of this resistance, I said how most likely we were going to be getting a pullback and we were going to be coming back down to retest this 43.30 level. And that's exactly what the S&P 500 did. Now, when I said this, I said that Bitcoin can go one of two ways. I said that Bitcoin is either going to hold this support right here, and the stock market will quickly finish this correction, S&P 500 will correct, and then it'll reverse. And then that will be kind of the same point where Bitcoin reverses. But the problem with that was we saw support failed here, and then we got pretty much an instant drop all the way back down to about the 2,500 to about the $25,000 level. And this is all something we talked a lot about in these prior updates. I said that if we lost the support at 28 or 29, there really isn't any support until all the way back down in 25. So to see us pretty much crumble instantaneously and just, it was a much bigger sell-off than even I was expecting. I figured it would be pretty quick, but not to the extent of this sell-off. This was actually the biggest liquidation event in Bitcoin's history, taking us all the way back over to here for the FTX collapse. So it was a very, very big move nonetheless. And so now that we're at the point where we've actually finished it, or we're kind of at this point where we've just finished the big move, now we've been consolidating sideways ever since. What does this mean? Well, right off the bat, guys, we're looking at the stock market. If the stock market and the S&P 500 specifically is to bottom here, we've already retested where we needed to, and we're about to start reversing to the upside, then at that point, we're going to expect to see Bitcoin bottom as well. Now, when we're watching Bitcoin, you guys got to remember that there's only really one level on this entire chart that is important, and that is this 25K level. This was the level of resistance throughout the entirety of the low end of our bear market. When we started our new bull market, we topped here again, kind of held resistance below this all the way through January and February. And then into spring, we broke out, and then we retested this once again, held. And so for us to be correcting and then falling back on this level once again, there is nothing that has changed. The only thing is changing is instead of us hitting this level as resistance and then falling lower, we're now breaking out and then correcting back onto this as support, right? So we're just getting kind of the opposite type of consolidation. We were making lower highs and then lower lows. And then in the bull market, we were kind of hitting this level, and then we were actually holding support. And then it was right here, February and March, when we finally broke out of that. And ever since February and March, any time that we've kind of corrected back down, we've corrected onto this level of support, right? All of the other times was resistance. This was below resistance of the 25K. Then ever since March, we've been correcting on top of that level of support. And we've had quite a few different reactions on this level. You could pretty much draw the entirety of this consolidation, even these little wicks that came in here, as the same sort of thing, because all of these were close enough within the range of the 25K level to just consider them all one consolidation, right? And so we've spent a lot of time consolidating on this level, and we've yet to break it. Now, even with this sell-off happening, it took us directly back down to that 25K level, and that's all that we're doing. Once again, we're sitting at the exact same range lows that we were at leading into our most recent attempt at breaking out of the $31,000 level, right? So So when we're watching this chart, guys, it's very, very clear. It's very straightforward. It's always been very straightforward. The only question that we really had was Bitcoin going to be able to hold this support up here while the S&P 500 corrected all the way back down to 4330? And the answer was no. Bitcoin was unable to hold when the S&P 500 made this big red candle over here. That was the point where Bitcoin lost the support and crumbled all the way back down. But we made it very, very clear that if we lost support, there wasn't any support until 25K. So it's pretty much just no man's sky all the way inside of this move. And so that's why we filled that level so quick. It doesn't change anything on the big picture because as it stands, you know, we're still consolidating above 25K. So as long as we're above 25K, nothing in the big picture has changed. And that's all I'm going to continue to stick to. Analysis is very straightforward when you're playing support and resistance because we know that above a certain level is bullish and below a certain level is bearish. We know that if I remove this upper resistance there, where we're consolidating on was the exact same level that we were consolidating on, you know, a few months ago, but we were below it as resistance. So all throughout this time, we were much more bearish than we are today. Even though we've had this big sell-off, we're still sitting on top of this level as support. So when we're watching this consolidation, regardless if we have a short-term bounce or not, if we end up closing below 25K and we're making a very significant close below, and this is acting as resistance, rejections happening all over the place, right? Then at that point, we're going to be expecting a pretty significant drop, and then I'm going to be drawing a 618 target, because we're going to be looking at the completed impulse, right? So we'd be looking at the 618 being about 21.4 thousand, and then we would be really looking at the 786 and potentially the 88.3, depending on how big of a correction that we would actually see. But I mean, if that's the case, this would just be our first impulse, and then we would end up losing the 25K level before we have one more kind of big capitulation that would be pretty similar to the one that we just went through. We'd go through these two little spills leading into these lower levels on the Fibonacci, which if we lose 25K, the only real level that we have on our entire chart is going to be taking us back down to basically the FTX level, right? This was support before FTX. FTX collapsed. We made a lower low. It became resistance off of this level here. And even though we instantly reclaimed that, and this entire move here was deviation, it's all still the same, you know, pattern. If we lose 25K, we don't have a support until basically 18.2. So that's why things are getting really interesting when we're watching crypto. As of now, we're still above 25K, so, you know, nothing has changed yet. As of now, we're still holding support. This is all still just a retest of 25K. And to me, I'm still going to be looking for another high upwards of $40,000 and $50,000 per Bitcoin. If we lose this level, then I'm going to be changing bias because at that point, we're going to be looking for a pretty significant drop to the downside. I mean, if we were to come all the way back down to that prior level of the FTX collapse, from where we're at today, all the way back down would be almost a 30% correction. So a 30% correction taking place after we've already had a 30% correction, that would really wipe out a lot of people. And that's why I think that the most important thing that we can look at is just simply watching the level, playing it level to level. If we lose this level, we get a daily close below it in the same way that we did up here, right? If we zoom in, our confirmation was this candle right here because the daily closed below support, had this big rejection. And then that's why the following day, or this is a 2-day candle, same thing, we had the close below the level, and then that's why we kind of saw this big candle here. If we see the same thing play out, where we get a big red candle and it starts closing back down below this, then at that point we're going to be anticipating the potential of having, you know, a much deeper correction here. Although I would imagine, based off the sell-off so far, I think it's more likely that we at least get a bounce in the short term before, you know, making that final leg lower. That's just generally the way Bitcoin moves. The way the stock market's moved with us retesting that level, I'm actually just leaning bullish like I have been, but that's all just because we're still maintaining 25K. If we lose 25K, I'm going to flip bearish because we'll most likely have almost an entire full retrace that's going to be taking place, probably back down to 18.2. So that's what I'm watching for Bitcoin. Now, guys, let's talk about all the indices, the total market cap of crypto, total market cap of altcoins, and then even looking into some of these other charts, because these are all going to give us an idea of what to look forward over the next couple months. So if we're going to be looking at the total market cap first, this is the best index to start with because of the main reason being this is the entirety of all of the money. This is Bitcoin, this is the altcoins, it's all of it. So when we're looking for an average, this is a general chart that I like to look at because it honestly shows a lot of price movements and gives us level-to-level bases that are much more consistent than maybe the dollar pairs are. So when we're looking at this, when I look at this chart, I see one thing kind of playing out, and that's a major wave count, and this is something we've talked a lot about, but the wave count that I see is us finishing our first impulse here, us finishing our first ABC correction here, and then most recently with this last move that we just saw, I believe that this is a sub-wave of wave 1, because we see another 5 impulse waves perfectly. 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 5. So we have a perfect set of impulse waves in here leading into an ABC correction. It's just that the wave 1 corrected all the way back down to basically the beginning of wave 1 and wave 2, which is actually standard inside of a one-wave impulse. They can correct all the way back down and basically fully retrace the first impulse, right? It's the exact same thing that happened right here in this wave 1. Notice how this wave 1 corrected all the way back down and almost completely fully retraced the beginning of the impulse. It's not much different than what we're seeing right here. Right? This one just barely maintained a higher high. So when I'm looking at this chart, I see a lot of the same similarities. All I'm seeing right now is the fact that we've completed our first impulse right here. This was a wave 1, ABC, and now we just finished a subwave right here, another subwave of wave 1. So I honestly think that we're about to be getting another impulse wave. And it all is riding around this level here. As long as we hold support at the level given, right? Same level being 25K. As long as we hold this level of support right here, then I'm going to be looking for continuation of some degree, right? I still think that this thing is going to be setting up for a bigger move upwards of this first lower high to begin our bear market. And I'm going to continue to stick with that basis. Nothing to me has changed. Even though we had the big sell-off, even though a lot of people crawled out of the woodwork, oh, I was right, oh, you're an idiot, oh, this was all bearish all along. The truth of the matter is the people that aren't profitable get bearish on support. We're bearish on support, or most people are that I see on Twitter anyways. The level that we've been looking at for confirmation the entirety of this, basically since June of 2022, we're sitting on that level of support still. Nothing has changed there. To me, as long as we're sitting on support, we're going to continue to watch for continuation because so far, nothing has changed with the Elliott waves. The only difference is we just got a wave C correction, which, is really where you're going to see everybody get bearish, is at the bottom of wave C. Once we finish the bottom of the correction, everybody's starting to crap their pants and run away. That's when the market will generally bottom. So whether we bottom or not, that to me is to be decided, but as long as we bounce right in here and get a decent move off of these lows, that's going to be kind of the decision maker for me. 25K is the first level. As long as we're holding above this, I think that all this is going to turn into is just another big consolidation, right? In the same way that this was kind of a big consolidation that we spent all this time through, 25K all the way down to 16K. Really, even if you draw it up here at 18.2, that would be a little more consistent, but this consolidation range was our first one that we went through, and we finished that finally. Now we're in the next one, and it's about the exact same size. The only difference is now 25K is support instead of it being resistance, and now our new resistance is actually $31,000 to $32,000. So this is kind of the next level of consolidation, guys, and it's probably just going to be a major chop fest throughout the entirety of it. There's nothing that's really changed throughout this. The only thing is, instead of us being below 25K, we're holding above. So now we've got the consolidation that's in a new range. So to me, I'm watching it. We're going to be targeting from 25K all the way back up to about 32K. And then from there, this will be the new range. In the same way that we spent all the time consolidating throughout here, waiting for the point of breaking out, this will be kind of like that new area. But the thing that I'm watching for is once we leave this area, and then this area of 32K turns into support, that's where I think that we get that final sort of leg up to end this impulse. That's still the thing I'm sticking to. Nothing has changed. I mean, until something changes, being 25K gets lost, nothing has changed on our big picture. All of our indices still look really solid. The total market cap still looks solid because all of these are just subwave impulses, right? Nothing has changed here. Even these, although not holding quite as high of support as Bitcoin is, these are all sitting onto support of their mid-range point, right? So This consolidation for the altcoins has been their important level. It's acted as resistance, it's acted as support, and we're once again sitting on that same level as support right now. So it's going to be acting all the same. The only difference is Bitcoin is obviously outperforming, so it's kind of sitting up at a higher level than the total market cap is. But the total market cap in all of these altcoins and everything as a whole, really, if we remove our drawing tools, they're all just making kind of this big consolidation. And to me, when I look at this, yes, there's a potential where this ends up making, a lower low and it's a longer consolidation and does something like this. That we can't ignore that. But until 25K until we lose 25K support, I don't think that we really need to focus too much on that, because as of now, the focus of that should have been happening up here, right? When we were already overvalued and we're about to have the sell-off. Now that we've already sold off and we're sitting on to support, now isn't the time to be getting bearish. Now is the time to be looking for long opportunities. And as of now, we've held support. We've maintained our bullish trajectory. Now, if we come over here and look at the total market cap, this is the altcoin total market cap. Things are kind of in a similar situation, but they're just not holding as good. All of these charts are just going to get progressively weaker. The altcoins have underperformed against Bitcoin. So all we've really seen up to this point has been kind of the same thing. The only difference was that it just hasn't been quite as big of an impulse, right? We saw our first impulse take us all the way back up near the range highs. We got that ABC correction back down. And now I really do see this being, just our first new impulse, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Oops, wrong one. And then we did just get the A, B, C. Oops. And then we just got the ABC. C wave took us all the way back down near full retrace. It's just, something that happens inside of a wave 1. I don't think that it really matters or anything. And when I see this market, I still see the exact same impulse that we were watching before. The only difference is we just had this kind of big extended wave C that took place right before that. Now, if we come over here and actually look at the total market cap, excluding Bitcoin and Ethereum, this thing is kind of going to look a little bit all the same stuff, guys. It's all relatively the same. The only difference is, like I've said, everything just kind of gets progressively weaker and weaker, right? That's been the only main difference here. But what I find interesting about this chart is we've kind of had this short-term descending resistance in here, and we've been working on a breakout for a pretty significant amount of time. We kind of did out here. We were consolidating above that, but then we corrected all the way back down, kind of got back above it again. But now most recently with this correction, this was actually us truly stitching in a retest of that descending resistance, right? All of these were retests, but the problem was they were deviation because we ended up just falling back below. Now, this is the first time that we've actually had a retest where we've maintained support above that level. So if we end up holding support like this, and then this breaks out again, all we're looking at here is the very early stages of impulses, right? All we're looking at here is the beginning stages, because already we finished one impulse here. That was one impulse. This will be another impulse. And then this would be another impulse there. In my opinion, that would be kind of like what you see. To me, I don't know how the best way to explain it, but you can see this oftentimes right before a big impulse actually takes place, where you'll get this little first impulse here, and then they'll kind of correct. Then you'll get another little impulse here, then that one kind of correct. Then you get another little impulse here, that will correct. And it'll make almost like this little triangle type thing, right? But it's always maintaining an uptrend like this. It'll just kind of get tighter and tighter and tighter. The volatility kind of die out. And then all of a sudden, it leads out to this big breakout to the upside. Even though I drew an ascending triangle in here, I was more just trying to share with you guys the similarities. And it's kind of like this little contracting pattern that we see, where once the beginning stages of an impulse are set, we get this impulse here, we get this one here, and it'll kind of be doing the same thing where, in my opinion, once this actually breaks and holds support, that leads us into a much bigger type of move like this. And that's kind of where you see the beginning stages of that new cycle start. We're looking at this across the board. In my opinion, these are going to end up holding as support, and then it'll still take us into one final kind of impulse up here. Even if we see another longer term correction, I'm still expecting that we're going to be breaking out of this, and this is going to end up being a long-term bottom formation. That's kind of what I'm seeing across the board, but the main thing that's telling me that is this Bitcoin chart, right? As long as we're holding support above this 25K level, that's our area in the sand. If we lose it, we're bearish. If we hold this above, in my opinion, this consolidation right here looks a lot like what we saw back down in here in 2019. And this is something I've drawn with you guys a lot. I've shared with you guys these exact same comparisons all the time. This move right here, where we first broke, this was our first major resistance, this level here at about 6K. When we broke out of it, we had this first sell-off here. We retested it. Then we made this next breakout. We rejected at the top of the breakout, and then we had this another correction that took us all the way back down to trending support right here. Everybody was drawing this as being some type of head and shoulders top, and then that's kind of what led us into that final blow off top to complete that move. And the way that the consolidation looks right now, it reminds me a lot of that same sort of stuff, where in the same way 6K was our important level to break from, we now have done that being 25K, and we're sitting on top of support of 25K. And so I honestly think that kind of in that same way where we had that fake out, we corrected back down onto trending support, caught a lot of people off guard. That's what led us to that final impulse to complete that beginning of the bull run. And so if we're looking at kind of the similar sort of thing, we might be seeing the same thing with us holding support here at 25K, and it just leads us to that final kind of breakout like this. And that's honestly what I'm watching for. I really do think that this is a similar type of setup taking place inside the market. We're seeing, you know, just the beginning stages of a new impulse. And with us holding above 25K, I can't repeat this enough. That is the most important thing. If you're unsure of what's happening in the market, understand that we are sitting on top of support. So we've had this big nasty correction. Everything was crazy. But understand that we're still sitting on support. So it's, you know, it's a lot more bearish when we have a big sell-off and then we still have, you know, lower lows to go until we have any major support levels. We had our big sell-off, and it's taken us right back down flush with trending support. So as long as we have that going for us, I'm anticipating that this will end up just holding in the same ways that it kind of has. And even though we got the big sell-off and it's caught a lot of people off guard, you know, I don't think it really has changed anything. And anybody that thinks it does doesn't understand the more of the basics of principles with TA, because here's the thing. Understanding support and resistance is just going to give us a very clear perspective. And as long as we're holding 25K, we're bullish above, bearish below, and that's how I'm playing it. So if you guys found value in this, leave a like, comment, subscribe, hit the notification bell so you don't miss out on any of these videos. If you guys want to join the Discord server, download my free ebook, or follow all the trades that I take over the course of this cycle, links are in the description. Go ahead and do so. Find all of that on my website. Thank you guys for the support. And with that being said, I will catch you in the next one. As always, peace out.